Hi, my name is Jessica Sierra, and we will be presenting Indigenous people, Zapotec, Mixtec, and Purepecha youth. Indigenous groups. Mixtec, Nahuas, Purepechis, Triques, and Otomis are the largest indigenous groups migrating to the United States. They began establishing transnational communities by recreating elements of their hometown here in the U.S. In 2010, about 200,551 Latinos of indigenous origin were reported in California. What sets them apart from other Mexicans is that they speak one or more of the 68 identified indigenous languages spoken in Mexico. They speak little to no English, have low levels of literacy and education, and are often poorer. In the chart, we see levels of poverty, and the indigenous group has the highest poverty rates. Multilingual abilities and linguistic assets. One of these assets is language brokers, as they act as liaisons between home linguistics and the larger dominant society. For example, children are usually asked to translate documents. This helps develop complex communicative repertoires that include linguistic expertise, as they are asked to translate usually between more than two languages. Education. Usually, educators often see Indigenous language as an impediment and scold parents. For example, an educator once told a mom if she, the mother, did not want to be the reason for his academic failure, she needs to stop using Indigenous language. There are also programs in school labeled, for example, limited English proficient, which puts a lot of pressure on the youth to learn English rapidly and to have shame in their language. In regards to language, many use the term dialect, including Mexicans, implicating that they are not speaking a legitimate language. This causes concern among parents that promoting trilingualism will pose an undue burden on their children. Indigenous language and ethnic identity. In regards to education, to help with identity, schools with integrated different types of Latino students and those that promote pride seem to do best in embracing Indigenous ethnic identity. And this is usually done by dances, music, art, sports, writing, and languages. This validates and causes a positive interaction with the youth in regards to their Indigenous heritage. Indigenous immigrant youth. They create different types of engagement with their indigenous community. For example, the group Autonomos, founded by Oaxacan individuals, encourage indigenous youth to rescue their culture and languages. During the meetings, they usually have different dances, they display art, or they teach one another their native tongue. In regards to language, language is integral to identity as losing it can cause identity crisis. In a study, there was many correlation between indigenous language proficiency and identifying as indigenous, as many said that they are not indigenous because they do not know the language. Although with language shame, there are many ways that the youth are finding to maintain their fluency.
Hello, everyone. Today I'll be discussing Oaxacan ceramics, a traditional folk art that has been passed down through generations. These ceramics are not only a form of artistic expression, but also an important part of Oaxacan identity and heritage. I'll cover the history, techniques, symbolism, and the challenges faced by the artists who create them. Let's begin. Oaxacan ceramics have a deep connection to the region's indigenous cultures, particularly the Zapotec and Mixtec peoples. These ceramics have been crafted for centuries using traditional methods that continue to be practiced today. Each piece reflects the cultural heritage of Oaxaca, carrying forward stories, techniques, and artistic choices made by the artisans. While many of these techniques remain unchanged, modern influences have also shaped the craft. Women have historically played a central role in the production of Oaxacan ceramics, often learning the craft from their mothers and grandmothers. Their work is an essential part of both their household economy and cultural preservation, as they pass down knowledge through generations. Many female artisans not only produce ceramics, but also sell them in local and international markets. ensuring their traditions reach a wider audience. Despite these contributions, they still face challenges such as limited economic opportunities and competition from mass produced goods. One of the most well known centers for Oaxacan ceramics is Acotlan de Morelos, a town recognized for its skilled artisans. The region's unique clay and long standing traditions make it an important hub for ceramic production. One of the most famous figures, Doña Rosa, developed a distinctive burnishing technique that gave black pottery a polished, reflective surface. Today, many artisans in Acoltan continue to work with this method, keeping her legacy alive while also developing new styles. The process of making Oaxacan ceramics is labor intensive and requires great attention to detail. Many artisans still use traditional hand molding techniques, shaping the clay without a potter's wheel. The clay is carefully prepared, sculpted, and burnished before being fired in underground kilns. The firing process varies depending on the desired finish, with some pieces left unglazed and others polished to a shine. Each step is crucial in determining the final appearance and durability of the piece. Oaxacan ceramics come in several distinct styles, each with its own unique characteristics. First is barro negro, black clay, known for its smooth, glossy finish achieved through burnishing. Then there is barro rojo, or red clay, a rough and unglazed style commonly used for cooking pots. And third, barro verde, or green glazed, a decorative ceramic coated with a lead-based green glaze. Each of these styles reflects different cultural influences and functional needs. While some are primarily decorative, others serve practical purposes in cooking and daily life. Beyond their physical beauty, Oaxacan ceramics often feature symbolic designs that represent elements of Zapotec culture. Many artisans incorporate traditional motifs such as animals, geometric patterns, and religious figures in their work. These symbols are not just decorative, they carry deeper meanings related to history, mythology, and spirituality. By embedding these designs into their ceramics, artisans preserve the narratives and beliefs of their ancestors. And interesting to note, this image here is of the Christian and Catholic nativity scene. Despite their skill and dedication, Oaxacan ceramicists face numerous obstacles that threaten the sustainability of their craft. Economic challenges arise from competition with factory-made ceramics, which are often sold at lower prices. Additionally, climate change has affected the availability of high-quality clay, making it harder for artisans to access their primary material. Many also struggle with market access, as they rely on tourism and small-scale distribution to sell their work. While tradition remains central to Oaxacan ceramics, many artisans have embraced new ways to sustain their craft. Some collaborate with designers to create modern pieces that appeal to a global audience, while others use social media and online platforms to sell their work beyond local markets. These adaptations help artisans reach a broader customer base without compromising their heritage. At the same time, there's growing appreciation for handmade, sustainable products, which has increased demand for authentic Oaxacan ceramics. And the image here is of a very modern looking ceramic figure from a American architectural magazine that I found. Oaxacan ceramics represent a living tradition that connects past and present. Each handmade piece reflects centuries of knowledge, skill, and artistic vision. As the world changes, these artisans continue to adapt while staying true to their cultural roots. Supporting their work helps preserve not just an art form, but an entire way of life that has endured for generations. By appreciating and investing in handmade ceramics, we contribute to the continuation of this remarkable tradition.
Hello class, my name is Francisco Gomez, and today I'll be covering the reading Mezcal and Mexicanness, the symbol and social connotations of drinking in Oaxaca. The growing interest in alcohol and drinking has been fueled by anthropologists' realization that consuming alcohol correlates with cultural, religious, and social identities as well as ethnicity, gender, and class. There is, though, a debate between anthropologists, as we enter the reading, on how alcohol should be viewed and studied. For example, on one side, anthropologists speak about the benefits and cultural significance of drinking, giving it a positive light, while on the other hand, some anthropologists believe that we shouldn't ignore the negative side of alcohol, such as issues relating to alcohol abuse and alcoholism, which are big social issues in today's world. Differentiating the two while respecting a culture can be difficult, but in the reading, the author dives into the symbolic and socially constructive aspects of consuming mezcal. What is mezcal, you may be asking? Well, mezcal is a distilled alcoholic beverage that comes from a plant called maguey, which you may know as agave in English. Originated in Mexico and was made by indigenous people. Mezcal is traditionally made from the heart of certain agave plants and usually made by the hands of small-scale producers in factories. This alcoholic beverage is seen as more than just a drink. It is a symbolic and social construct that embodies Hil identity and pride. It also represents the resilience and character of Oaxacan people. Drinking mezcal is also a social act that not only fosters bonds, but also reinforces social divisions, like I mentioned previously, gender and religious lines being a few examples. Now, before diving too much into mezcal and its significance in Mexican culture, let's talk about the two other alcoholic beverages that also originated from Mexico. The most popular being tequila, which you may already know of. Made from the same plant that mezcal is made from, tequila is known internationally. This alcoholic beverage is made exclusively from the so-called blue agave and is usually produced in factories unlike mezcal. Now, the reason why this drink became so popular is because it fit the image of modern Mexico better than mezcal and pulque. Pulque is also a traditional alcoholic beverage that is made from the same plant that both mezcal and tequila are made from. But the reason why pulque is not as popular is due to the fact that it is seen as too Indian and is associated with the urban poor. Now, before talking about how mezcal is seen as a summarizing symbol, it is important to highlight the difficulties of living in certain parts of Mexico, more specifically Oaxaca. Oaxaca is a state in southern Mexico known for its indigenous cultures, and although it is the fifth largest state in Mexico with a population of a little over 4 million people, Oaxaca has seen its fair share amount of issues. For example, in certain parts of Oaxaca, many villagers suffer from poverty, unemployment, violence, and inequality. Villagers are also under strict communal obligations. But with all that being said, mezcal represents the strength, resilience, and cultural pride the residents of Oaxaca have. Mezcal is not only seen as a symbol of pride and strength, but of health as well. Most would think that drinking alcohol is damaging to their health, but mezcal is seen as a cure for most colds and fevers, which is something I have never even heard of before. Lastly, how is drinking mezcal a social glue? First of all, offering mezcal at religious festivities or other festivities alike is a sign of hospitality and moral responsibility. Accepting mezcal is also just as important as it is socially obligatory. There are also some drinking rituals and social norms you may see which include the consumption of multiple shots of mezcal, which is done mostly by men, as well as peer pressure from others to continue drinking for multiple rounds. One ritual you will see often is the spilling of mezcal on the ground to honor the earth. As you can see, mezcal is seen as much more than just an alcoholic beverage. It is a social glue that fosters community bonds.
Life of Violence and Vengeance: Stories of Older Oaxacan Adults. Oaxaca has the largest number of indigenous people and languages, majority living in rural areas which are more prone to helplessness, inequality, poverty, vulnerability, and exclusion, causing problems for the elder. There are high risks of domestic abuse and gender violence, including family violence, structural violence, gender violence, intimate partner violence. Violence in Oaxaca. At least 43% of Oaxacan women have experienced gender violence, including psychological, emotional, physical, sexual, property, or economic violence. Violence is a constant in the life of older adults, whether in their family, within the couple, or within the community. Family violence. 47% of older adults told stories of child abuse, representing a key element in their own violence against their children. A life of economic misery is a life of structural violence. The girls were expected to endure but allowed to cry, while the boys were expected to endure pain and maltreatment. An example of structural violence was recruitment for farm labor offering less than $7 from dawn to dusk in the North. An incentive was free bread and coffee, in which many accepted due to the high rates of poverty. Gender violence. In Oaxaca, women are marginalized and at greater risk of assaults. The majority have not completed primary school, and their place is at home. Forced marriages. Older women were subjected to forced marriages even as young as the age of 11 years old. About 41% of women aged 15 or older suffered some type of intimate partner violence. 78% of older women experienced physical and sexual violence by their husbands. The culture of violence in home extends from violent childhood to violent adolescence, violence in adulthood, and intercommunity violence, creating a cycle. Intervillage violence is usually seen among men in Oaxaca, which is a bloody conflict over land that has been endured for centuries. Some even use witchcraft against a successful neighbor due to envy. Violence in male result from the male identity crisis or inability to control women. Due to intervillage violence, Oaxaca has a long tradition of social rebellion as well as bloody vengeance. Alcoholization is well known in indigenous area. 78% of interviewed women have alcoholic husband. This aggravates violence behavior, contributing to family and social dysfunction, hence the cycle.